the latest coming in on the debt ceiling crisis, which is at the moment plaguing the United States but could potentially plague the entire world economy. On Monday, President Joe Biden and House Speaker Kevin McCarthy failed yet again to agree on how to raise the U.S. government's $31.4 trillion debt ceiling. This is just 10 days before a possible default that could sink the entire U.S. economy. Nonetheless, the two have now vowed to keep talking. The Democratic president and the top congressional Republican have struggled to make a deal for days. This as McCarthy pressurizes the White House to agree to spending cuts in the federal budget. And as is public knowledge, Biden considers them to be quote-unquote very extreme. The president is also pushing new taxes only to raise the debt ceiling, which of course the Republicans have rejected. Now, let me also take you through the key sticking points of the negotiations that took place between McCarthy and Biden on Monday. While acknowledging there was no agreement yet, here's what Kevin McCarthy had to say. He said, "I did feel the discussion was productive in areas that we have differences of opinion." And while sounding a tad bit more optimistic, the House Speaker provided an estimate. He said that the process of drafting, reviewing and voting on an agreement would require approximately 72 hours. Now, on the same day, the U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen cautioned the entire Congress in a letter underscoring the gravity of the situation. So what happens if the U.S. debt ceiling reaches a default scenario? You can see it on your screen over there. Janet Yellen has described the likelihood of a default in early June as quote-unquote highly probable, because remember, the negotiations between McCarthy and Biden are still in a stalemate. Her statement emphasizes the severe hardship that American families would have to endure if the Congress fails to take action. On the other hand, both President Biden and McCarthy are under pressure from the more progressive and conservative wings of their parties. It's important to keep in mind that if such a catastrophic situation does plague the US economy, it will be the entire world economy which will be bearing the brunt, because remember, the larger volume of the world trade is conducted in dollars. Now, given the Democrats' slim one-seat majority in the Senate and the Republicans' narrow control of the House, reaching a compromise has proven to be extremely challenging for the Republicans and the Democrats so far. And with that, let's now shift focus.
We're optimistic we may be able to make some progress because we both agreed default's not really on the table. We've got to get something done here. And the consequence of failing to pay our bills would be that American people would have a real kick in their economic well-being. As a matter of fact, the rest of the world would too. And so we also agree we need to reduce the deficit. And I might add, in my first 2 years as president, I reduced it by $1.7 trillion. It matters. And so I'm all for continuing to reduce the deficit. And but we both talked about the need for a bipartisan agreement. We have to be in a position where we can sell it to our constituencies. We're pretty well divided in the House, almost down the middle, and it's not any different in the Senate. So we got to get something that can sell to both sides.
Well, let me be very clear. From the first day I sat with the president, there's two criteria I told him. We're not going to raise taxes because we bring in more money than we ever have, and we're not going to pass a clean debt ceiling, and we've got to spend less than we spent this year. And so everything else is open for negotiations. But that is, at the end of the day, it has to fit in that place.